Hello, this is the next in the series of Applaud training, and this is the first session where we start talking about the security within Applaud, and in particular our use of roles-based access control. So roles-based access control we sometimes call RBAC, RBAC. This is often the topic that consultants experienced with Oracle e-Business Suite find the most difficult and challenging. It offers very many more options on security and control, and some topics can get quite advanced. So in this particular set of training sessions, it's considered an introduction to RBAC. We don't cover every very deep topic, but we cover the main topics and concepts that you need to understand in order to configure Applaud and configure your own custom processes. The format is the same as before. This suite of learning will be broken into different recording sessions, but really the goal of the recorded training is to help you understand the concepts in particular. We'll be spending a lot of time talking about logically how the security hangs together. We will be looking at the Oracle screens, of course, but really the goal is for you to understand what we mean when we talk about RBAC concepts like roles, permissions, grants, and a very, very important topic, data security. So roles, permissions and grants, they let you assign pages or menu options to your users in a secure way. For example, you give your employees access to their own payslip, or you give managers the option to look at absences for their team. Okay, that's the sort of thing that we do with roles, permissions and grants. So in functional terms, the concept is quite similar to standard Oracle. You find out you give someone a role, like a manager, and that role has access to different functions within their menu. When we get onto something like data security is a completely new topic for many e-Business Suite consultants. And data security concerns the security of querying rows back from the database. You can start to put security on the data that comes back, not just the processes that you can work with, but also the data that you can see. The closest analogy in EBS is something like a custom security profile, where in a custom security profile you define through custom SQL which people you can see within HR. That's an example of data security. We take that concept and we apply it to any piece of data within Oracle HR, not just people records. Okay, so these are the concepts that we're going to cover. Some of the concepts will go into the later sessions on configuring extra information types and custom views, but for today we're just going to be concentrating on setting up new roles and responsibilities and giving access to processes or pages securely. So RBAC is standard Oracle functionality. This is not something that we've introduced with Applaud. It's available in Oracle e-Business Suite. You can have a look at Oracle documentation. There's a reference for you to go to Oracle support. And I encourage you to do so if you find there's extra topics that you want to cover that we don't talk about. RBAC is a very deep piece of functionality within Oracle. It's not used very much within HCM, which is why it's not familiar to a lot of people. But there are a lot more options available than what we use. The training course is really on the topics of RBAC that is used exclusively within Applaud. Okay, the first topic then is on the concept of a role. Roles. So what's a role? So in business terms, in functional terms, is a job that someone does. Okay, nothing more complicated than that. Examples on screen there, an employee or manager, those could be two different roles. You could have a role of a payroll administrator. You could have a role of a timekeeper. You could have a role of an expense approver. Okay, so a role is a function that someone performs within the organization, but also within the context of the system that you're working with. So the function that someone has within Oracle as well. Now, Oracle have designed RBAC in an interesting way, because a lot of the security terms that you will be familiar with already, like responsibilities, like menus, like functions, they already exist, and RBAC uses some of those. And in Oracle terms, a role is actually a responsibility. Actually, I've said that the wrong way around. A responsibility in Oracle is actually a special type of role. We'll come on to this topic a little bit later, but basically think of a role as a responsibility. They're one and the same almost. Here's a simple example of a functional example. I'm not getting into the technicalities of the screens yet, but this is the sort of thing you do with roles. So a role is attached to a user in very much the same way as a responsibility is attached to the user, but roles are also attached at the user level. Here we've got a very simple example: employee role, manager role. The employee can look at their payslip, or they can request an absence. The manager can look at the salary history of the people that work for them. Okay, really, really simple. And this is very much like the Oracle you're used to, except normally you'd see employee responsibility and manager self-service responsibility, and these would be functions on a menu. Okay, very, very simple concept to start with. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention is that roles have inheritance capability. You can have one role inherits the security from a sub-role. And this example on here demonstrates that. So again, I've got the user at the top. I've got the manager role here is unchanged. Here, I've introduced a new role called the worker role. And underneath this, we've got two sub-roles. We've got an employee role and a contractor role. Okay, so the reds, or the red squares here are roles, and then the greens are the menu functions, if you like. So the employee role can be basic, request absence. The contractor role can end their placement. They can also request a business trip. So a contractor wouldn't have a payslip. Contractors don't tend to request absence, and similarly the employee role wouldn't have an end of placement. Okay, so these functions here are specific to the employee role. These functions here are specific to the contractor role. And over here we have another interesting one, view worker profile. So this is like an employee directory access. That's available, actually at a high level, is available to the worker role. And what that means is that if you were to give someone the employee role or the contractor role, because of role inheritance, they'd get these ones down here, and they'd also get this option here. So it allows you to do some interesting things which you can't do with responsibilities. You can't make responsibilities linked to each other normally unless you use RBAC. Now we use that inheritance in a specific kind of way. All of our security in Applaud hangs off roles. Okay, so all the security that we'll be setting up today will be linked to the role that someone has. So a common question usually when we're starting rolling out Applaud is, how do you assign these roles to existing users? Let's say you've got an implementation already with maybe 10,000 self-service users, and then we introduce our Applaud stuff. How would you give the right responsibilities, or sorry, the right security to those 10,000 users? Well, the chances are those users will already have employee self-service or manager self-service, or both. If you've rolled out self-service already, if you've deployed self-service to users, then all your 10,000 users will have one of these or both of these responsibilities. So what we do is we attach an Applaud role to the corresponding responsibility, and then if that user has that responsibility, they inherit everything underneath. Okay, so think of that through again. You've got 10,000 users on your existing setup, and each one of those users already has employee self-service or manager self-service, or both. And then when we come along, what we're doing is we're attaching the security to the existing responsibility through these new roles. And because of that, anyone that logs in that already has employee self-service will get all of the Applaud employee security, and anyone that's got the manager self-service responsibility, they will get all the manager Applaud security. Very, very, very important, this concept, and it's a topic that is easy to forget about once we finish the course. But when you come in and do a first project for the first time, there's a certain setup step you have to do, which is really extremely important, and it's actually linking our out-of-the-box security to your own self-service responsibilities. If you miss that step out, when you come to test with your users, they'll find that they can't do anything because there's no security done. Okay, so how do we do all this? So first of all, we introduce you to the responsibility of user management. This is a very important responsibility within Oracle that we use a lot. Some of you may have had expertise or experience with user management already. It's often used to reset passwords, and it's an alternative page for adding responsibilities if you don't want to use the forms. So a lot of you would have used user management, and there's users tab on the left. What we will be doing is using some of the other bits on here. In particular, we'll be using roles and roles inheritance to look at all the security that Applaud delivers. So to get to this screen here, I will do it on screen in a minute. First of all, you have to go to this responsibility called user management, and then you have to go to this roles and role inheritance tab at the top. Now in here, I have to say Oracle have made it as difficult as possible to use this screen. It's not an easy screen to use, but I'll take you through it slowly. So first of all, I usually search for roles by the code here. So any role that we ship out of the box will start with this funny thing called UMX and then a pipe. That's Oracle. Oracle are determining that, not us. And then our roles will start with XXAS. What we recommend is you don't use our roles, that you can create your own or use our template. And customer roles would usually start with XXX_XXAS. Okay, so that's the first thing to be able to query Applaud roles back. You use a code that starts with UMX pipe XXAS. Now there's a gotcha on here. To be able to use this particular screen and to be able to create roles or update roles, you have to have the role security administrator. Now that is not the same as the responsibility system administrator. It's a role, it's not a responsibility. So you need to, and the only way you can be given it is either by a sysadmin user or someone else that has that role already. So if you're going onto a brand new installation, the only user that has access to that to start with is this sysadmin user. So often you'll need to ask your person with sysadmin access, and this is the sysadmin user, by the way, the admin user, to give you the role security administrator, and you have to do that through this users tab at the top left. I'll try and remember to show you that as well as we go through the demo online. Okay, so when I'm talking about sysadmin, I'm not talking about the system administrator responsibility. I'm talking about the sysadmin user. Okay, so once we've got onto here, we can see all the different roles, and these are the roles that we ship, Applaud ship. Now you also in here, I mentioned that roles are a subset of responsibilities, or sorry, actually responsibilities are a subset of roles. And in the screen you can also query back all the responsibilities as well. So a normal responsibility you can query up in these screens, and they start with the code FND. Okay, so if you query something back here and you see the code starts with FND_RESP, that's what we call a standard responsibility. if you were to go into the forms, the Oracle forms, and use the responsibility form, then these are the ones you would see. You can't see regular roles in the responsibility form. If you just look at what the code looks like, F&D RESP is an indicator that this is a responsibility. Then we've got PER, which is the application that owns that responsibility. Then we've got this, employee direct access v40. This is the responsibility key. Okay, this is the internal code or key for responsibility. And then this at the end is the security group, which is almost always standard for HR. And then this name here is the same name as the responsibility. Okay, so I'll just go back and forth. All roles then either start with the code UMX, and that's pure RBAC roles, or they start with F&D, and those are responsibilities. So let me just cross over and show you those screens. So I'm in here, I'm into our training environment. I'm going to go into user management down here. Let's start with users. So user management has these 5 options on them. So this is the screen that I would guess a lot of you have used already. If I was to search for a username here, search for B. Erickson. You can see the user. If I go to update, reset password in here, I can also see the roles and responsibilities someone's got. Okay. So I'm going to query back my own user. So I'm logged in as this guy here, HRMS. If I look at update here, just going to query by role. It's been a bit slow, just wait for it to load. Just a point here, all the list in this table, this is a combination of all the responsibilities someone has. Responsibilities show up on your navigator, and all the roles that someone has, so they're shown in one place. Actually, this is the only place that you can see which roles a user has. Okay, so now that's come back. I've just ordered the roles in alphabetical order. So you can see here there's a mixture of stuff like a proper responsibility, and now we've got some of these roles that I talked about already. There's the Applaud ones. I'm just going to scroll through really quickly through the normal stuff. Okay, here's the security administrator role. And notice it's different from system administrator. So system administrator is the regular one that you guys will all have used, where you do users and responsibilities. Security administrator is a separate role, and that's the only one that's the role you need to be able to do grants and so on. So you need someone to give you that role within this screen before you can start using user management properly. So if I was to show you how that's done, these are the instructions you would give a DBA basically. So let me find someone that hasn't got this one already. So I'm just picking up a user at random. Okay, so if this was a consultant that needed access to do RBAC, I would go in here, I'd do assign roles, I'd do security, security administrator, press select. And you have to give a bit of justification. You press apply and that'll be done. But the key thing is the only person that can do what I've just done is someone that already has that role or the sysadmin user themselves. Okay, so it's an easy step to miss. if you've not used this before. Okay, now when I go into roles and roles inheritance in here, this is where we can query back all responsibilities or roles. So if I do Applaud and I do UMX, the code, there's all my roles. So you might be sort of thinking, if this is new, why are these different from responsibilities? One of the main differences is when you give someone a role, that doesn't show on the navigator. So when you get logged into Oracle, you've got your list of responsibilities. These roles are invisible. They're kind of like virtual security. So you don't see those on the navigator. That's the easiest difference to make you guys understand to begin with. As we go forward through the course, you'll understand more and more how these are used, but that's the key difference right up front. So when I log in, I don't see Applaud Delegated Access, I don't see Applaud Functional Configurator, I don't see Applaud Note Taker. These are all virtual roles, okay? Now, however, when I look at the F&D ones, these are the responsibilities that we ship, only 4 of them. There's Applaud Employee Self-Service, there's a Manager Self-Service, those are ones that you normally assign to yourselves at the beginning of a project. You can tell it's a normal responsibility because it's got F&D RESP, there's the application code, there's the responsibility key, security group. If I was to look at maybe the Oracle responsibilities, I'll look at employee. Obviously, Oracle on the demo instance that we're working on, they ship a lot of responsibilities. I'll just go through, you can see the ones that Oracle ship. There's the standard employee self-service one right there. Okay, all right. So that's a little bit about just roles and how you look at them in Oracle. Now, when we carry forward, let's remember about the inheritance thing we talked about. So how does role inheritance work within the Oracle screens? Well, when you query back a role like this, you see a little icon here. That's basically your icon to get into the role hierarchy. Basically, the top level role inherits all security from the roles underneath. Here's an example here. If I expand this out, I can see the employee self-service role inherits a couple of sub-roles underneath. So this red is highlighted because this is an important point. When you do an implementation for yourselves, you shouldn't use this role that we ship, really. This ship is a template role for you to copy or just to look at as almost like a demo. But every time we ship a patch, we may change the security against that role. In the same way, you wouldn't use an Oracle responsibility. You'd copy an Oracle responsibility and you'd use it yourself. Similar here, we have we recommend you copy your own or make your own role with your own security against it. We actually ship one out of the box for you to copy if you want. We'll talk about this in the 4th set of sessions on our accelerated patch. But we recommend you take the one that we use and ship. But what the step you have to do every single time, it's not something we can do for you, is you have to attach this role to your standard employee self-service responsibility using inheritance. Very important, so I'm going to say again, a step you must take right at the beginning of the project is you look in your screens for your regular responsibility, the ones that your user or customer is already using on site, and you must link that one to the Applaud employee self-service role. And what that means is when anyone logs in with their existing responsibility, they'll inherit all of the security from the Applaud role that you've linked to it. And exactly the same has happened for Manager Self-Service as well. So I'll go through that on the screen. So let's have a look at the Applaud roles. In fact, that's not, sorry, we were in the right place. So this is the employee self-service. Okay, let me just get another menu up. So I've got two instances going next to each other. Okay, so right, this is me logged in as this guy here on the same system. and this is my list of responsibilities down here, and on here we've got Applaud Employee Self-Service. We've also got Employee Self-Service here, and that one I've highlighted is the same as this one on here. So this is your standard Oracle Employee Self-Service responsibility. Now when you are working for a customer, you are likely to have copied this, or the customer's done it already, and you have a customer-specific Employee Self-Service menu. All right, so you'll probably, in a live implementation, you'll have another responsibility in addition to this Oracle one. But for our purposes, let's pretend this is the one that is being used on the site. So on here, I press View in Hierarchy. Now, so what happens, I get this little plus icon on here, and that plus icon indicates that there's a role that sits underneath it, that there's some inheritance going on. That plus isn't shown, there's no inheritance. So I'm afraid the screens aren't too easy to work through, but just look for that plus. If I click on it, there we go, and underneath that we have this template role. You can actually see there's another one underneath there as well, so I can keep on going down, but for now I've got this role attached. What that means is that when I log in to Oracle, if I've got this responsibility, as soon as I'm logged in, I've inherited that role. So Oracle knows Barry Erickson has the XXX Applaud role by virtue of having this responsibility. This responsibility gives me that role, and it's done through role inheritance. So for example, I wanted people with I expenses to have the Applaud Employee Self-Service role. What I would do up here is I'd put in I expenses, just be clear on getting an F&D responsibility, press go. Well, there's quite a lot here. I think it's this one is the standard one, I think. Of course, Oracle being Oracle, I ship about 20,000 different responsibilities with a similar name in their demo instance. Yeah, okay, so let's go back to the first one. So, back one more. So let's say I want to give anyone that's got I expenses access to Applaud. What I would do is I'd click View on Hierarchy. Now you see this one doesn't have a plus. Right, that doesn't have a plus, so there's nothing underneath this responsibility. Press Add. Then we get into this really confusing screen. I don't know who designed this, but they were very sadistic. It's very difficult to find what's going on here. What you're aiming to do is link a different, find another role to link to. Okay, so what I could do is I could take, I don't know, just take one at random. I'll take that one because it doesn't get used very much. Oh, good. Oracle error. Very nice. Let's try again. Okay, just waiting for it to spin. Okay. I fear Oracle's going to time out in a minute. It's taking a long time. Basically what I'm doing is I'm just attaching this role, this kind of virtual role, to the responsibility above it. I'm not quite sure what's happened there. Unusual. No rows were selected. Okay, Oracle's gone wrong. It gives that error that caused it to go wrong. Let's cancel that off and try again. Oh, done it anyway. There we go. Good old Oracle screens. Right, so what's happened here is I've linked the Applaud note taker role to the top I expenses. This example is just an example to show you how to use this screens. This example doesn't make sense really, but it just shows you how to link a role to a responsibility. I'm just going to remove that node just to clean up. Now, if you're doing this and needing to test, I would recommend that you log out and log in, and sometimes do a functional administrator clear cache. And also sometimes there's background processes that kick in depending on your setup. So So sometimes you need to wait 5 minutes or so before role inheritance is recognized, but usually it's pretty straightforward. Okay. Now all of this will start to make sense as we go through, but at the concept, the aim of this particular piece of training is really just to get you to understand the concept of the role and how to link two roles together, and really to make you remember, hopefully, that one of the big steps you have to do is link a custom role to your standard ESS or MSS responsibility. Right, we're going to do 10 minutes exercise. This is pretty much an exercise for you to do exactly what I've just shown you on screen. There's nothing really else new here, but it should take 10 minutes. So same format as on previous recorded sessions. I'll pause the recording training for about 30 seconds, and then when it restarts I'll go through the answers, but in your own time go forward and do the exercises, and I'll go through the answers soon. Okay, right, so let's go through the answers to this particular exercise. Firstly, navigate to user and management responsibility roles and responsibilities. So hopefully this is as easy as it comes. So user management, roles and roles inheritance. And then you're into this screen here. So this is just it's a good one for you to do on your own systems as opposed to our training environment, just to make sure we've got everything set up properly. Find the Applaud role with code UMXXXASESS. What's its name? Okay, so again, exercise and just using the screens. So I tend to do, I'm never very confident to type in the pipe, so I usually just do %. It's up to you how you want to do it. Okay, so I've done a search on a sort of a pattern. If I want to look at the XXASESS, which one is that? So it's the top one here. So this is the Applaud Employee Self-Service role, not to be confused with the Applaud Employee Self-Service Responsibility, which would have an FND in the code. Find and review the equivalent role for managers. What's its name and code? Okay, so easiest way to do it if you couldn't already guess it is just take the ESS off. Hopefully you would find that through a bit of common sense. It is the manager self-service role. So this one and the ESS and the MSS ones, these are the two really important ones that we ship. And what we recommend is you just take a copy of them, throw XXX on the beginning of them, or whatever you prefer to use, and use a similar copy. So don't ever change these and use them in live, basically. These are fine for setting up a proof of concept or an early demo, but in terms of doing a safe configuration, you should not use these in live at all. You should take copies. All right, find the Applaud Employee Self-Service responsibility in the user management screen. Okay, so this is going back to my comment on this screen shows roles and responsibilities. So if I search on Applaud, you can see there we've got more than 10, but the ones that I want right at the top, these are the standard responsibilities, and you can see now the responsibilities and the roles being shown in the same screen together. Okay, so here's our employee self-service responsibility. This is the one you see on the menu here, or you don't see on the menu anywhere. As you can see, you don't see that anywhere at all, because that is more of a virtual security setting there, so kind of hidden. So these responsibilities you see on the navigator, these roles you do not see on the navigator, but you still have them. When you log in, Oracle knows as soon as you log in, you've got a particular role. Click on the View and Hierarchy button for the Applaud ESS responsibility. Okay, so not this one down here, but this one up at the top. So the View and Hierarchy is here. Now, what do you see? Well, first of all, we see a plus, which means that it's got some inheritance. And underneath this I've got two things. I've got the Applaud Employee Self-Service role. I've also got this XXX role, which is the copied. So in this particular example I've given this responsibility. Both are out of the box role and the custom one. You wouldn't do that in a normal setup. You'd give them this XXX one down the bottom, or your custom role. So this is basically replicating the scenario where you have your own responsibility, your own employee self-service responsibility that you already have given to users, and you need to go further and give your Applaud role to that existing responsibility. Very important step. Can't tell you how many service requests I've had on people that have said, why can't I see my menu options? And it's usually down to the hierarchy that have been set up. Find the role with the name Employee Self-Service. Click on the View and Hierarchy button. What do you see and why? So we've kind of done this in the exercise anyway, the lecture. So I'll click on that particular role. Okay, this is the what we've found is the list of standard employee self-service responsibilities that Oracle themselves ship. Click on the View and Hierarchy button. What do you see and why? So if I click on the View and Hierarchy button, same sort of thing is going to come up. Again, got the plus there, shows me I've got a sub-role. Anyone that has the employee self-service responsibility already will automatically inherit this role the next time they log in. Final one, why should you never use XXX, XXAS ESS and XXAS MSS roles in a custom implementation? I've said that a few times. Exactly the same reason you wouldn't use an Oracle responsibility, because every time we release new functionality we would put that on our default role, and if you're using our default role you'd find your users got that new feature without them knowing about it. You'd always take a copy, like you would take a copy of the Oracle responsibility, and work off that copy. And as I mentioned in the fourth sessions we have, we'll be talking about our configuration patch we ship, where actually all this is pre-created for you, so you don't even have to do that if you use our accelerated template. Very good. Okay, that's the end of the session on roles. Hopefully you understand what the role is, and very close to responsibility of course, and you understand inheritance. That's the main topic really. The next session is going to be on permissions and permission sets. That's the end of this recording.